Okay, so let's introduce the complications and the nuances. Let's do it. Codeine, anybody, heroin, cocaine, tramadol, and also who are the real victims of a drug epidemic. Now let's bring this conversation into 2024. There's a bill by the Nigerian lawmakers, I think it was in 2020, to legalize cannabis, right? This is a recurring theme with Nollywood movies that take on huge subjects. Somewhere I felt that sneeze coming on and I thought I could escape it. Nope, when you gotta sneeze, you gotta sneeze. Okay. Hi there, welcome to my channel. My name is Pearl, and on this channel we do all things African cinema with special focus on Nollywood. Today we're reviewing Offshoot, a crime drama currently showing in cinemas across the country. This is a spoiler-free review. Welcome. Offshoot is written by Temitope, Bolade and Dichie Enunwa and directed by Ayeny. Here's a summary as found on IMDb. Modesire has just been appointed as head investigation and operations of the NDA after the demise of her boss. Dee, as she's fondly called, sees this as an opportunity to prove that she's more than capable of ridding the country of the drug menace that has been plaguing it in recent times. She immediately hits the ground running with several successful raids and quickly catches the attention of the drug cartel. When she starts to receive death threats, her husband Dike becomes worried and tries to talk her out of pursuing the cartel so aggressively, but for Modesire, there's no turning back. It's all or nothing. Her constant refusal to see reason, even when the threats intensify and involve their daughter, greatly annoys Dike and puts a strain on their relationship. In a bid to save his wife and family as a whole, Dike has to make the best and worst decision of his life, taking them both on a roller coaster journey that threatens her job, their marriage, and eventually maybe even her sanity. Guys, thank you so much for being here. If you're not subscribed to this channel, can I ask you to please subscribe? Also, at some point while watching this video, now's a good time. Could you hit that like button right below? Let's get straight to discussing the cast and performances, and here I'll stick to only the major players in this movie. Kehinde Bankole, she's the lead of this movie and her name is Modesire. She's great here. Now, standard, she's beautiful, she's talented. In this movie, she's fierce, she's a vixen, but she's also a boss babe. Her performance here is really good. There are, however, some scenes where she exhibits some discomfort, and I think it's the kinds of scenes, and specifically it's the intimate scenes, the seductive kind of scenes between she and her husband. Let's talk about the husband, who's the role, that's Dike, played by Kelechi Udegbe. First of all, there's a scar on his face. Sometime, I think it was late last year, he had a really bad accident that could have taken his life. We're very grateful that he's alive, but I don't know if that scar is makeup or if it's a new feature, or if this is a movie he shot after that accident, and if anyone knows, I don't know. Anyway, in this role, he's very dexterous here with his change of expressions and demeanor, because he wears several hats here. In this movie, he plays very well the vulnerable tough guy, the stern odogu to his Enunwa boys, because we have a little Enunwa boy story somewhere there. Well, not really a story, just a feature in the movie. So he plays the lover, sometimes frustrated husband, the worried father, etc. And I think that as far as this movie and his delivery, he seems most at ease and most comfortable in the roles where he's speaking Igbo. So his scenes with the character we're going to talk about next, Zuki, and his scenes with his Enunwa boys, that's when he seems most at ease in this movie. Let's get to David Jones David, who plays Azuka/Zuki. He's all right here. This is not my best or favorite of his performances. You know I love this actor already, and I've said before, like I talked extensively about him in the last movie we reviewed, A Father's Love. In this movie, I'm reminded that along with his versatility and huge talent, he also speaks several languages, and so here he gets to flex his Igbo. I think in the other movie he flexed his Hausa. He really does. He's multilingual, but like I said, this is not my favorite of his performances. The hair dye here, it suits him, but it also looks a little bit costumey. The accent here, the Igbo accent, it does seem put on. Still, for what it is, the character is enjoyable because he always does a good job. I think the script here is what does him no favors. Also, his scenes with Dike, let me just say that they are part of the reason why this movie runs over 2 hours. So just the script not really doing him huge favors here, but David as a person, as an actor, is impeccable. impeccable. Let's talk about Ibrahim Suleiman, and I'm smiling because I think this is the first time I'm talking about Ibrahim in a movie I'm reviewing, and he's my guy as well. He's probably my top performance here in this particular movie. He's very credible as the chief of staff of Modesire, who's his boss. The way he flows with the twists and turns of the plot in this movie, it just really speaks to his versatility. And also, guys, Linda Ejiofor's husband, Linda Ejiofor's boo, is a fine man. He's a tall drink of water, and yes, I can see him blushing and laughing as he's watching this because he's also very shy. Isn't that funny? But he really does amazing in this performance, and just all around. Okay, before I summarize the cast, let me just talk about Gregory Ojefoa. My thoughts here regarding Gregory are not very complimentary. Remember, I spoke about him again not long ago in Kilborough, and I had really high praise for him because for once I saw him put away the comedy, the buffoonery, the funny, and all of that, and really just stay true to a serious character. Here, I feel like he's kind of relapsed into, he always finds the comedy, and I'm starting to wonder if it's his physicality, and I don't know what it is. Every time I talk about him, I'm like, oh, he's being stereotyped, but now I'm asking myself, like, is he the one stereotyping himself? Because he does always seem to lean towards that. Again, I'm using that word before, I hope it's not insulting, but I think he needs to take himself more seriously. But all in all, he's a really talented actor. This doesn't take away from that. Finally, this character here, this actor in this role of Chairman Bimbo Manuel, he appears only once, but he has probably what I think is the best monologue delivery I've seen in a hot minute, and probably that includes the one in Kilborough, because I did say that I wasn't crazy about, I liked the performance, but I didn't like its place in the movie. But Bimbo Manuel here, I really enjoyed that delivery, that monologue. It was good. I think it was also the writing, but also he's always a powerful actor. Let's get straight to, guys, what works. This is always my favorite part of any review because I love to talk about the good parts of the movie. I've given already a high rating for the cast and performances. Production design here is really decent, a bit more than decent, but let's leave it at decent, especially the choice of locations. So also art direction is really good here. The interior sets are very believable. The editing in this movie is really good. There's so many like nice and fluid transitions that I really enjoy here. The sound design is good as well, with a score that really helps heighten the tension, which is so crucial for a movie like this, which is suspenseful, and the tension is also really important here. So the sound brings all that together, and color grading here is good. Dark, brooding tones that really accentuates the underworldly vibe and tone of this movie. There's quite a bit of staging here that I enjoy. Some shots, the camera work and all of that. Just in general, the cinematography is really good. Action scenes as well, mostly those drug busts, they're not bad. Actually, there are many of them that are truly well choreographed. There's good chemistry between the married couple, that's Mode and Dike. The family dynamic also, along with the daughter and the mother when she visits, is lovely. There's a bit of misdirection in the plot on who the insider is, as well as the ultimate overlord of the drug operation, and all of that is very well executed, I'd like to say. Finally, taking on the story, of a drug menace or crisis in Nigeria is a really huge undertaking. It's a daring topic to explore, and I admire the guts, of that. Guys, have you liked this video so far? If you haven't, can I ask why not? Please do, and if you're not subscribed, please consider subscribing to my channel. Thank you so much. And now let's get to what does not work. I've already said that the cinematography is good. While that worked really well, some of the camera movements I found to be a bit distracting and disconcerting in the way that sometimes in certain scenes the camera moves from speaker to speaker. I've said that the performances in this movie were strong, but in the beginning the actors didn't seem very comfortable. Some of them spoke and acted pretty rehearsed. It did pan out well in the end. Now, I received the screener, and I'm just going to say that the picture quality of the screener that I received was not great. Don't take my word for it, because again, that was a screener. I don't know if that's the final product that makes it to the big screen, and if it is, that's probably going to be, I would be worried. And I guess I could have asked, is this the final product? My bad, I didn't ask, but let me just leave that there. I don't even know why I put it in this section. It could have been somewhere in overview. So take this out of the what does not work section. Let's talk story and script. In some instances, I feel like the plot could have been better established and better connected. The drug business, for one thing, usually involves higher ups in government. We know this. And the choice of who is put in a sensitive position usually has to have the thumbs up and the backing working of the cartel. And so it raised the question for me of what is about Modesire that allows them think that she is a suitable candidate for that position, which is going to track directly to my comment on character development. I know what these characters do. I know their motivations, just speaking generally, but I don't know who these characters are. Where we meet Modesire, we meet her at the time when she's getting this position. I have no idea what her goals and ambitions were prior. I don't have a feeling that I know these people. I see their actions, but I don't know them. There's a small plot there that just picks in here and there, just a baby making plot. I don't know what to call it. It seems to be employed sort of like an intermission to the story. So, and I think that it could have been integral to the plot to underscore just the fact that women that have demanding jobs or in high positions, they still often have to fulfill a biological imperative and or domestic roles, and that often complicates things. So how I think that could have been employed in this case is that in the beginning we see her all excited about wanting to make another baby with her husband, but then when she gets this position, from the complications or the stress or the demands of the job coupled with the security issues that they start experiencing, then she changes her mind about that and starts to try to delay and say, oh no, now's not a good time, which would lead to genuine frustration, but understandable frustration for the husband. In this case, it just seems very incongruous to me the way it starts out with her wanting to get pregnant, and in the heat of all the things that are going on, she still continues as though nothing has changed in her circumstances. And if the plot had done what I suggest, which was turn things in that way, it would have made the husband understandably frustrated. But the way it's played here, he comes across sort of like almost petty and whiny in the way that he approaches the demands of her job, as though it took him by surprise that if the wife got into this kind of position, their lives would change in some significant way. Now, while the suspense in this movie is well handled and the reveal is indeed a surprise, I didn't enjoy very much how the reveal, comes to be. It just seems too easy. In hindsight, once you know who is behind everything, some plot points come into question. There's a voice distortion that ruins the suspense somewhat because it confirms to the audience that the suspect is someone who is known to the audience. It's almost like breaking the fourth wall, just in the sense that the disguise is for the benefit of the audience rather than for the benefit of the people in the room with the speaker. And so I thought that did something to the suspense. Not that it doesn't reveal, but it just tells us in general, this is somebody who is known to us, the audience. The resistance of the husband, and I've talked a bit on this already, but let's just talk a bit more about it. The resistance of Dike, that's the husband, is inconsistent, and then even more inconsistent is the way he does the turnaround when he stops stressing her. Like 1 minute he's all about, you need to chill, you need to hold breaks, you need to stop, you need to blah blah blah, and then all of a sudden he has a change and starts to lend his full support, but we don't see what causes that turnaround. The threats go away. The threats didn't go away. They were still very much present. So that was something that I felt to be inconsistent. There are some scenes that don't feel finished. Let me give you an example. There's a raid which ends however it ends, but then in a follow-up scene we then find out that some of the culprits have been captured, and I'm thinking it would have been nice to see that play out, which tracks to the very next point, which is that there are instances where I would have preferred to be shown and not told. There's some plot points that do come across as contrived. One of them is the actions by a character called Leo, who's the subordinate of Modesire. There's some things that he does in the story that I'm like, that would never just happen in that way, however much you want to play that a character is being flagrant or disrespectful, and also that story just never quite resolved. Then this is my biggest one, I suppose, which is the lack of emotional beats in this movie. This is a recurring theme with Nollywood movies that take on huge subjects. Somewhere in tackling these huge, larger than life subjects, we lose the heart of the story, we lose the humanity of the story, we lose what really matters and connects audience to a story. In this case, I'll tie it to the stakes of this movie. What are the stakes for the characters? That was a big question for me throughout. Sure, we have a hint of danger here and there. We have, there's a threat of loss of position for Modesire, specifically for the agency. It's to their benefit that they track down and bust this cartel or whatever. Oops, sneeze. I felt that sneeze coming on and I thought I could escape it. Nope, when you gotta sneeze, you gotta sneeze. Okay, let's carry on. But as it is here, I really don't know these people, like I've already said, and therefore I don't know what personally they want. So still speaking of stakes, it feels for Mode, this whole story, this is a larger than life story, as I've said. The problem here is that the big stakes are played as her personal stakes, but they really aren't. There's the big stakes, which are the organization stakes, and then there are her personal stakes, which, what are they? They're playing this like the big triumph of, you know, the agency are Mode's personal stakes, but those are two different things. And also, who are the real victims of a drug epidemic? You know, there's nothing about that. So I feel a disconnect to the story in that I never see the real victims. You can posit, you know, you can theorize on why there should be a crackdown on drugs, but for a story that is all revolves all around, you know, drugs and busting cartels and all of that, you would want to have a human face to the crisis, and there was nothing of that sort here. Also, when Mode tries to tie her personal, you know, position to subordination and undermining of women, blah blah blah, is it because I'm a woman and all of that? The truth is that there's no real evidence of that in the story, and so it does come across as a feminist talking point. A final nitpick, let's call it that, is having her husband Dike suddenly become the expert on, you know, how Mode should do her job. He keeps turning her in the right direction, which, while I understand the intention of the story, which is to misdirect, and we know why, it does make her appear like a puppet, and guys, that is not something that's good for your protagonist ever. Also, throughout the movie, I don't see her make any smart, independent choices and decisions. When it's not her husband Dike who is leading her in this direction, it's Tony, her chief of staff, who is leading her in this other direction. I just did not really like that for the protagonist, and especially when the protagonist is a woman. All right, guys, there's some other things I could say, but they could risk spoiling the movie, and that's both for what works and what does not work. There's more that could be said, but we're not trying to spoil this movie. I'm just going to conclude this by saying that I enjoyed this movie for what it was. It's a crime drama about drugs, and that's never going to be just a lazy, easy watch, and even harder when the style is suspense. This movie succeeds in misdirection, but it pays the price in confusion. The plot is a bit difficult to follow, but that keeps you on your toes. It keeps you alert while watching. This is not a movie that you watch passively. You have to actively watch this movie to follow the plot. For a cinema movie that is a one-off, that could be a problem, but when it comes on streaming, when it does, when you can watch and then go back and try to unpack whatever came before, it would be, I guess, a clearer watch or an easier watch. The topic here of drug business is interesting. That said, the choice of cannabis as the drug of focus in this movie, it poses certain complications. Let's talk about this. This movie begins with the screen text that says, according to a 2018 United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime report, globally, the most common illegal drug used is cannabis. In Nigeria, drug use problems are found throughout the country, with over 14.3 million drug users. Close to 3 million have suffered from a drug use disorder. Now, let's bring this conversation into 2024. There's a bill by the Nigerian lawmakers, I think it was in 2020, to legalize cannabis. Shawore, when he was running for presidential elections just last year, 2023, he had this strong on his agenda. In fact, one of the strongest items on his manifesto, again, the legalization of marijuana. And so I feel that this conversation is still, that's in this movie, is too skewed to one side, which is the side that demonizes cannabis and does not at all acknowledge some of the benefits of possible legalization of cannabis, or at least acknowledge the nuances of that conversation. One thing you want to do with a movie, it's okay to take position, but at least introduce some of the nuances and complications of that conversation. Okay, so let's introduce the complications and the nuances. Let's do it. There's significant economic as well as medical incentives to legalizing marijuana, and as a matter of fact, marijuana is being decriminalized in several places around the world. We know that very often criminalization is a key aspect of abuse, and so I feel that on that score, this movie is not really in tune with current global conversations around cannabis use and distribution. Here's a 2024 statement by the Drug Enforcement Agency in the United States, because this movie started with a global quote, so we're not going to just restrict this conversation to Nigeria. So this statement here by the DEA in the US says, the shift from plant-based drugs like heroin and cocaine to synthetic chemical drugs like fentanyl and methamphetamine has resulted in the most dangerous and deadly drug crisis in the United States has ever faced. There's a country that conducts surveys and keeps records. But the truth is, we have a drug crisis in Nigeria. We can agree on that, right? I've been hearing that it's been getting worse and worse. And that drug is not necessarily cannabis, guys. Like, that's an old maid's tale. Codeine, anybody. Heroin, cocaine, tramadol, and so on. And so I think that this movie missed an opportunity to bring sort of a fresh perspective to this conversation on drug abuse and just the drug problem and market and all of that in Nigeria. That said, it's an enjoyable movie and it was really time well spent for me. This movie runs just a little, tiny little over 2 hours, and I thought it was really a good way to spend 2 hours. This movie features really strong performances, good subject matter, interesting story and plot events, and a painful if surprising conclusion. And so despite everything I said in the what does not work, I really do recommend this movie. It's a decently made film with lots of attention to detail. It's not a bad way at all to spend 2 hours. All right, guys, that's it for Offshoot. Thank you so much for being here with me. If you stayed till the end, thank you. And if you've not subscribed, please do and like this video. Also, don't forget to share, and I'd like to hear your thoughts in the comments. I'd also like to say thank you to the executive producer of this movie, Oluwatoyin Adewumi. She was very kind to extend me a screener for this movie, and not once, not twice, not even 3. I think I got 4 separate emails. All my faults because I kept, never mind. But anyway, I really appreciate that, because also, you know, the filmmaker I like, the filmmaker who gives me a screener when I ask for it. But you know the filmmaker I love, the filmmaker who comes to me and says, do you want to review my movie? And I'm like, please, yes, thank you. It speaks to a certain confidence that you have in your movie, the fact that you're not afraid to have somebody take it apart, and I really do appreciate and respect those filmmakers. Shade thrown. There's going to be a short version of this review below, so for those who aren't crazy about long videos, there you go with those. Don't forget to share with your friends and family as well, guys. What do I tell you? You have the right to an incredible viewing experience, so never settle. Thank you. Oh wait, which kind never settle? Did you guys see my paintings? I just finished these paintings and I'm shameless. You know, I say I'm shameless. I made them for my friend. I've not taken them to her. She has not seen them. It's a surprise. But I was like, no way I don't flex with this at least once. Okay, sorry, you have the right. Go with your rights to an incredible viewing experience. Oh my God. All right. I don't know how to end the video.